Ooh, we're back, baby. Horns up, talking Texas podcast. Fisher, DJ, Nikki, Snacks, Kreider. The Horns win, baby, win. Survive in advance. Head to Fayetteville. A lot looked very different than the last time we head to Arkansas a couple years back in Sark's first go at it. We win 20-10. 2 penalties, Nick. Ran the ball really well. Quinn looked solid. Third down was still an issue. But I'll start with maybe my biggest thing, because it's been my biggest drum beating. We sacked the quarterback, baby. 6 sacks, 9 tackles for a loss. At that point, that's what I asked for, and I can't be that upset.
Yeah, and a lot of it also was plays that didn't even show up on the stat sheet too. Just like the pressures that were getting back there and making that QB feel uncomfortable, and making him have to use his legs, which we limited him. I mean, he had 11 carries for 56 yards and a touchdown. We knew that he was going to try to run the ball, but I think by and large our D-line was the shining star all game long, getting in the backfield, just creating tackles for loss. I mean, it was you're just naming the sacks itself. I mean, the tackles for loss was even more than that. So, I feel like this team, we had 9 tackles for loss. So, yeah, I mean, something that we've been trying to hone in on all week long. Just funny on the flip side, Arkansas also had 9 tackles for a loss. So it's not always a perfect game all around. We still haven't found that perfect game, but in terms of how the D-line played, I was so impressed and so happy that they finally, were able to create some havoc back there. And a lot of it, I think, had to do with just like different looks, right? Different blitz packages. I mean, we had Jahdae Barron get a sack back there. Colin Simmons had 2. Trey Moore gets his first of the season. Barron Sorrell, Alfred Collins. Alfred Collins had probably his best game of his career, which
he's been on fire though.
He has, but I mean, this right here was like your shining moment game where, okay, NFL scouts can look at this game and say, all right, maybe this guy can play. Maybe he is worth a good draft pick, a mid-round draft pick. Definitely earned some money this game. A lot of these guys did. I mean, Jahdae Barron did the exact same thing. I mean, he's been on fire all season long. He's gonna get first team All SEC honors for sure. He's gonna be probably an early day 2 pick if I had to guess. Maybe second or third round. He could be early second round, but this was also a game for him where he earned himself some real money.
Yeah, I mean, across the board, like, there's no unit that we have that's playing bad defensively, quite frankly. Like,
nope.
Barron to me could be the thing about Barron's draft stock that's super interesting. You have the kid from Eastern Carolina who's supposed to be ahead of him, but he's out with a season-ending injury. You have the kid from Notre Dame who's supposed to be ahead of him, but he's been out with the season-ending injury. We discussed this last time we were talking with Quan. I think Toss brought it up. If you go all the way, you have an opportunity to play at this. That would have been 7 more games, 6 more games. And the competition is going to continue to get to the best of the best, right? So if we are in a situation, we just want to talk about in a blanket statement about Jahdae Barron's draft stock, like, let's say all things go really well and we head to the college football playoff. He might have an opportunity to go against like a guy like Cam Ward. He might have an opportunity to go against a guy like Travis Hunter, right? Like, and these are situations where if we continue to win, and you want to talk about his draft profile and his draft stock, there are very few people at that position that have the option to continue to climb as high as him, in my opinion. Like, there are a lot of good players out there. The kid from Arizona, Takario Davis, Burke from Ohio State's also in a similar spot. But as far as production and tape, like Jahdae Barron, like I think you texted us, what a great decision to come back and set an example and return and like grow your value. And he's done that tenfold. He's a leader of this defense. And to me, I think there's a world in which he climbs into that top 25 range.
Yeah, I mean, it's a significant example that you can show a lot of juniors at this university, but all around college football, that sometimes if you stay for a senior season, right, where let's say what's like his best draft position last year? Like if he were to be in like this 2024 draft class, he's maybe a 6th round draft pick.
5th, 4th, like, yeah, he'll depend.
Right. Stays for another year, competes for a national championship, first year in the ICC, obviously. So there's something to do with that there. but earning his money, earning his keep, right? Where he's a second round draft pick now. And look, we would not be shocked at the end of the season if he snuck his way in the first either. So, like, this is a glaring example of why sometimes it benefits you to stay for a senior season, because football is one of those sports where it's just grown man against grown man. Sometimes guys develop a little later, sometimes you get a little bit of extra speed, a little bit of extra strength, a couple of extra inches on your height, on your wingspan, like all those little things. It's a game of inches, right? It matters.
yeah.
So, especially with young men who are developing at the age of 20, 21, 22, right? Like it benefits you sometimes to stay, unless you are just no doubt about it, generational talent, going top 5 overall in the NFL draft after your junior season, right? They're already talking about that stuff as you're coming out of high school. Like Anthony Hill, like Kelvin Banks, those guys have no reason to stay for their senior season. But if you're a fringe guy who's got, late round grades, like what's the difference between, staying for an extra season and either going undrafted technically, but still getting to the league, or being a 6th, 7th round draft pick, like
Oh my God, it's night and
money,
day.
the money is the same pretty much. So it's like, let's get you the recognition and stay 2nd round, 3rd round for a senior season.
He's not. He's going to go higher than that at this point. I mean, yes, like that's like maybe the best case scenario. But it's even
Collins too, and Barron.
Yeah, but it's even a better. Yes, Barron Sorrell too had a great game. I mean, like I'm looking at Michael Taft. It's like you're a junior. You could get drafted this year. Maybe you should. But like, what if you come back again? Like, what if you return again at that point? And for Jade, he's the bona fide best rated corner in the league right now. And now it's SEC football. So you could look at our schedule, like people about easier schedule. They haven't really gone against. I mean, he hasn't really, other than Carson Beck, been tested, but there's not many guys that A, will test him in college football right now. And B, he's produced against everywhere he's gone. And if he goes and has a good game against Kentucky, good game against A&M, and we beat A&M and he gets to go to the SEC championship, he might, get to play Jackson. There's a world in which he could play Jackson Dart or get to see Carson Beck again. And at that point, I really believe this kid, and it's so funny. Quan was like, we haven't spoke about him enough. And you're like, yeah, well, I guess it's a good thing. And now like this whole, beginning of the show the whole show's been about him. But I really think you got to make the argument he's been our best player this year. You have to make that argument. And he's really produced. He got a sack, another interception, and he's just done a masterful job. And he's the number 1 rated guy at his position in college football. And that's not something we have like that. He's the only one on the team that is in that spot. As good as like Simmons and Anthony Hill and these guys have been, they have not been the top guy. I mean, Hill's up there, but he's not been the top guy, and Jade's the top guy at his spot.
And I think in those guys' defense, I mean, obviously Simmons is a freshman, but edge position and linebacker position talent is pretty deep. So it's hard to be the top guy.
It's a crazy year for edge guys.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's hard too for being a DB. But yeah, I mean, like I think Will Johnson was like the number 1 guy coming out. I mean, which he's still probably the best corner in college football. Like he's gonna go top 5. But
look
as it stands, he's right there with them.
Well, Hunter will go number 1 potentially, and then Will Johnson will be the second corner taken.
Hunter won't go number 1 because he's a great corner. I think Hunter will go number 1 because of his versatility of being able to do both.
Fine, yeah, but like we'll count that as the first corner taken. I guess both sides of the ball, right?
Mm-hmm.
Will Johnson number 2, fine, but then you have Jade at number 3, and it's completely plausible with the injuries to Ravel and from Eastern Carolina and Morrison from Notre Dame. So you got to give Jade his flowers. Offensively, I wasn't obsessed. I mean, I felt like we could have had a more explosive offensive game, candidly, but I was happy with the way Jaden Blue ran. I thought that was a bright spot in his involvement in the passing game. You didn't get what you wanted from Matthew Golden as far as filling the entire stat sheet out, but you'll take him being.
I'm cool with him getting 2 really big red zone targets and catching them both for touchdowns.
Oh, yeah. Cool. And he's another guy that could come back too. Should come back, in my opinion. I know we have a lot of guys coming in, but he's got 8 scores this year.
Yeah, I mean, he leads the SEC.
Yeah, which is pretty remarkable. And then again, like, they had some good pressures. They had good tackles for a loss. It's great to see our offensive line, no penalties across the board. And I would say my only hesitation, because the defense really has no issues for me in this one. I would say my biggest hesitation for this team, and it was a tweet that I forget who put it out. I just worry that offensively we are too, and I don't mind the dink and dunk, but we are a little bit too reliant on the dink and dunk, and we have to get some sort of big explosive play threat going. And I know they had good pressure, and I know that's kind of what the game script lended us. But some kind of big 50-yard bomb, 60-yard play, big
Yeah.
massive play. We just didn't have a lot of that in this one, or any of
Yeah,
it really.
I don't necessarily know if we needed to this game, but I mean, I'm with you. I mean, last week, look, we tried to go deep a couple times, and DeAndre Moore dropped a really big one that probably would have been a long touchdown. Um, I think I do realize, like, it's pretty like easy to say that when Arch is in the game, they are much more trigger happy to go deep. Uh,
Mhm.
Maybe it's just a thing for Quinn, who doesn't trust his deep ball enough, or doesn't want to, have an ugly number in the stat sheet when it comes to interceptions. I don't know. Like, I think there's multiple factors here, but I mean, if you're able to control the tempo of the game, and you're able to, um, score and make plays, like, you don't necessarily need it. But I think for me, and like, I thought this is what you were going to say, is that I'm kind of sick and tired of I mean, look, it's the same thing that we say all the time. Like, I'm sick of this offense just like having drives where they go 3 and out and like they punt it right away, or like back-to-back 3 and out drives, especially to start the game when you want to make a statement, drive one, drive two, and you're just giving them opportunities. It's pretty deflating, and it really kills your momentum, especially when your defense is playing so well this season. You're putting them right back out there after 3 plays,
Mhm.
hardly taking any time off the clock either. So I don't know. I feel like we should get a little more creative with our schemes. I think the issue is that, like, on play one, if you have an incompletion, or you get a 1 yard run, or a run that gets stuffed on first down, then you're 2nd and 10, and like you have to pass it, right? And you're 3rd and 10, then you have to pass it. And it's like defense kind of can predict what you do. So I don't know. I like the dink and dunk, I think, early in the drive. I think if you're on first down, you want to dink and dunk with some screen plays, just create some separation for your receivers to, create space, and make some moves with the ball in their hands. Then that's something I'm for. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, look, it's easy to play couch coach. You know what I mean? Like
No, but I
backseat
think you're right,
coordinator.
though. Like, I was just looking at the breakdown of let me read you the breakdown. First drive, five plays, 18 yards, punt. All right, your opening drive. Second drive, 3 plays, 0 total yards, punt.
Yeah, I mean that
Third,
was probably incompletion.
we had a negative play, right? Third drive, touchdown. Fourth drive, 3 plays, -1 yards, punt. Then we had 11 plays
Field goal, right?
for only 20. So yeah, for the field goal, fine, we'll take the points. 12 plays, 45 yards, killed a bunch of clock, punt. Not great. Obviously, you want points, but you kill clock, fine. And then the last, drive of the half, 3 plays, 3 yards, punt. Like, just that's what I'm saying. It's just not explosive or dynamic enough to start. And
It's
there was
vulnerable.
it's
I
vulnerable. Exactly. Yeah.
it leaves teams, with the door open. It leaves the door open for teams, is what I'm trying to say. Like, allow, because if that's a good offense, right, in Arkansas, or even Florida, right, like the game we played last week, they take advantage of those opportunities. They take advantage of the fact that we punt right away, and they drive right down and march down the field and run down our throat. That's what Georgia did. I mean, like,
What do you
that's
think? What do you think Alabama and Jalen Milroe are going to do, and Ryan Williams
exactly.
are going to do? So, like, yeah, you're right. Like, that's why actually the best drive of the entire game is when it's 13-10 and they score, and then we have that 8 play, 75-yard drive where we answer
To close it out, pretty much, yeah, to
to,
put the
to
nail in
end
the
the
coffin.
game, to put them
Yeah.
down. Yeah, and you know what? Like,
I think it's an urgency thing. Like, they don't play with the sense of urgency when you've got a 0-0 game, or a 10-point lead or something like that. it's an urgency thing when like like that drive you had to score. Otherwise, Arkansas is getting the ball back and they're saying, you know what, you're leaving the door open. We're gonna walk right through it.
But why is this still consistently our diagnosis and analysis of the team that there is just a general lack of like flair, urgency, and deliberateness? Like one of the biggest things we talk about with Quinn and Sark, one of the negatives, not there's a lot of positives. One of the negatives is they don't come out swinging, they don't come out hot, they don't come out and just punch you right in the mouth. Very, very, very infrequently do they do that.
I mean, I
just don't know. I don't know.
I wish I had an answer. I mean, I think that there's a multitude of things. I feel like at this university, you don't play with as quite of a chip on our shoulder as some of the smaller universities do. Like even in Arkansas, right, who is low on the totem pole in the SEC. Like a lot of these guys are fighting for time to shine in the light so they can get drafted, to prove themselves. They want to knock off a top dog in Texas. Like we're circled on the calendar every single year by every single team that plays us. Who are we circling? Like besides Georgia and maybe A&M, but besides that, like every other game is just like, all right, let's just get through this game, right? So I think there's a different mentality when you game plan for this game, right? Like Arkansas, their players are in their meeting room all week long, super excited, fired up, trying to get each other jazzed that they're playing Texas and that they have the opportunity to knock off the number 3 team in the nation. Like that's what it's like every single week for the opponent against us. For us, it's like, all right, we can't take this lightly. It's Arkansas. We can't look ahead to, the A&M game. Like, let's just survive this week. Let's get through it. Once you start getting into that mentality of just like, all right, like let's just do our thing, not be as excited, then like you're opening yourself up for vulnerability. And I think that comes from a coaching perspective of play calls, a playing perspective too, where it's like if you're Quinn, you don't want to, look like a complete buffoon against a lesser opponent, for our receivers who they want to shine, they want to get playing time, like they don't want to, lose their personal draft stock. It's hard to say. I mean, we're also not in that locker room, so we don't necessarily know exactly what goes in and out of the minds of these players, but that's really only my speculation of just how you prepare for the game and how your mentality is, because it's a mental thing for sure. We are far more talented than this Arkansas team, right? We were far more talented than that Vanderbilt team. Like these games really shouldn't have been that close. I mean, we've got 5-star talent all around the board. We've got amazing transfers. We've got blazing speed. We've got the best coaching staff. We've got one of the greatest minds in college football. Like we have all the juice, but there's just something internally, I feel like, that we're still not kicking it into the right gear because the excitement's not there. And maybe it has to do with the fact that what you just said a few minutes ago about how if you make it to the college football playoff, you're playing an extra 6 games. You know what I mean? Like you're playing the SC championship game. You've got first round, second round, national championship. Like it's a long season still for a lot of these guys. So it's like you almost get exhausted if you psych yourself out every single season. For a team like Arkansas, it's like their season's pretty much done after 2 weeks from now. That's it.
Yeah.
Like
I mean,
some of these guys are playing their last games of football ever.
Yeah, I just looked at it like if we lose to A&M, we still have a 75% chance of making it. So that lack of urgency, that lack of like the thing about Georgia and Tennessee and Alabama. Now Tennessee's in that bracket. The thing about Ole Miss and Georgia,
they're playing playoff games every game.
Alabama, that's the beauty of this college. Like every game's a playoff game for them now.
Well, let's take last night for example, Chargers and Bengals, right? The entire country, for the most part, thought the Bengals were going to win that game because for them, it's a must-win game, right? You're a 6-loss team in the NFL, in week 10, week 11. Mm-hmm. Like your chances of making the playoffs if you lose this game, you're a 7-loss team. It's over. You're pretty much toast. You got maybe a 5% chance of making it after this. They fought back, right? Chargers got a little complacent, right? A 6-3 team who looks really good right now for playoff aspirations, and Bengals tied it up, and they had multiple opportunities to take the lead and win the game. And obviously their kicker misses 2 big field goals, and then Chargers have a game-winning, end of game-winning drive, which is great to see. finally undoing the Chargers curse of blowing leads. But it's one of those things where it's like the Chargers didn't have as much on the line. The Bengals had everything on. It was their season right here. And so that's kind of, I feel like, at halftime, those Bengals players probably and those coaching staff said, like, look, this is it right here. Like, if you guys don't come through in this game, season's over. Chargers didn't have that exact same conversation in the locker room. You know what I mean? For them, it's like, yo, just, keep playing good ball. Like, this is fun, right? Like, we're at home.
I also
We're beating
feel
the
like
crap out of the team.
they're also in that position, but I think Harbaugh, that's why they win the game ultimately, is like Harbaugh's
Oh,
the
yeah.
head
If they
coach.
didn't have Harbaugh in that game is they are losing
If
that
they
game.
had Staley, they're
That's
losing.
Brand
Yeah.
Staley. That's a
Mhm.
loss.
But I do think that their mentality though is great, and I think the Bengals mentality in the second half was great, but they have that same lackadaisical issue that we're discussing about the Horns. They come out slow and they start the season slow all the time. And that's why they're probably going to be in a position where they have to make a change. Obviously, we're never going to make a change from Sark, but we have to have that full gear that you're discussing that the Chargers had at the end and at the beginning to close games out and win. And we are winning, but to really put the stamp and close the door on some of these teams that we should be, like, we have to go to Kentucky. It's, you want to talk about like big games, like, oh, like obviously the A&M game is, the next biggest game we have on our schedule. This is this could be the last home game
All
for
season.
all season for some of
I
these
mean, yeah,
guys.
last home game for a lot. This might be senior night. I'm not sure, but
It is.
yeah, there you go. It's senior night. So this could be the last home game that these guys ever play there. It's going to be emotional for sure.
This is
Um,
Quinn's. This could
we're
hopefully it's the last game these guys ever play there. For some
yeah,
of them, like, you don't want
we're
to
a
be in a
20 and
position
a
where
half point favorite, right? So we haven't covered a spread in a little bit. Actually, we covered the Florida game, right?
cover
Yeah,
Florida.
we covered that.
We've not covered after covering every other spread, I believe. We have not covered 3 of the last 4.
Yeah. So we can't take this opponent lightly. This should be a team that we trounce, obviously, but coming to DKR with a full packed house, probably for the last time this season, a lot of these players last time playing there, this has to be that extra like sense of urgency and mentality that we're like talking about right now that was missing this week. I just
You
have to
want
believe
I agree, because you want that momentum going into the final
A&M,
game, A&M game.
right?
I also
And
this
you
is
can't. I mean, I know that A&M probably feels the exact same way that we do because we are in the exact same position as them for the most part. They have a little less ground to walk on right now just because they have an extra loss. But essentially, they've got Auburn this week. We've got Kentucky this week. 2 games that we should both win. We can't be looking ahead to A&M. Like, this has to be taking care of business now and then focusing on A&M next week.
I had some buddies say this is I agree, but I had somebody say, I think you're gonna be in the same boat as me. Somebody's like, "Oh, how hilarious and great would it be if they lost to Auburn?" I'm like,
I don't want that.
"No. No, why would you want that? I want like I want as the highest everything stakes on the line.
I
Like,
want the
well,
hype.
it'll all still
College
be on the
game
line."
day.
I'm like, "Yeah, it'll all still be on the line, but like we want them at their best, playing their best, their hottest. We want the smoke. Like,
Yeah,
I don't want them coming off a loss to Auburn. That deflates it a little bit. It just does.
I
Like,
agree.
I want them coming off a win. Hope they win emphatically. Hope we win emphatically. And this is it. Winner goes to the SEC championship. Like, you couldn't script it better.
Yeah, no, I agree. I wouldn't want that either. I want this to be the resurgence of the rivalry that everyone wants, right? I mean, this is going to be it's the hottest ticket all season long in college football in terms of admission, right? We're
Mhm.
talking $800 just to get in the game. Probably gonna have college game day there. I think they haven't decided on kickoff time yet because they want to see how they can flex it. What makes the most sense in terms of just how the layout is that week. The hype is there, so hopefully both teams are at their best, and then winner goes to the SEC championship. That's plain and simple.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm trying to look at the tiebreaker. So right now for the SEC championship, hypothetically, when push comes to shove, it's head to head among tied teams, record versus common opponents, record against the highest place opponent, combined winning percentage. So Texas and Texas A&M were both 5-1. Georgia's finished at 6-2. Tennessee's 5-2. Bama and Ole Miss have to finish out their 4-2. LSU and Mizzou are out of the race. So Ole Miss and Bama are 4-2, and Tennessee has one more SEC game, and they each have 2 a pop.
God, why does Georgia have 2 games left that are non-SEC?
They
so
just
weird.
hey, look what it is really weird. Still, I don't know what they're I
mean, I get Georgia
Tech still?
Tech's their last game. I mean, that's
Is
like
it?
that Georgia rivalry game, but they've got UMass this week.
Yes. So winner of the Texas A&M game is going to get that first spot. It looks like, assuming that A&M doesn't lose to Auburn.
Yeah.
So the second spot right now, as it stands, if we win out, we get Milrow in Alabama, assuming they went out too.
Yeah.
Which I think would be a very wild, interesting test of the game. That'd be
For
crazy.
sure. I don't think anyone in this race could be taken lightly. And I don't look, we knew all these teams are good, but this is what it's all cracked up to be. I mean, this is like what's advertised in terms of the SEC, right? Texas and OU really underperformed this season, but Texas joining the SEC, right? Where you've got 6 teams right in the thick of it, right? That are all vying for the same opportunity to play in the SEC championship game and to get to the national championship. And so this is what's to come for the next, decade, hopefully. But it's exciting, I mean, the fact that no one knows who's going to play who, like I'm sure there's betting odds right now on like what the exact matchup will be in the SEC championship game. And it's so hard to predict because there's just been so much craziness so far that's happened this year in the SEC, and not even with the top teams. Like we're talking about, teams knocking off some of these guys, like where they shouldn't have gotten wins. Vanderbilt beat Bama.
Oh yeah, we're lucky, honestly. The Gamecocks it's unfortunate they lost that game. Their quarterback went out and they lost that game to the overrated Brian Kelly and LSU because the Gamecocks are lethal.
Yeah, I mean their big losses were LSU, Ole Miss, and Bama. I mean those are the only 3 losses right there. And one game was a 3-point game against LSU. The other game was a 2-point game against Bama.
They should have beat LSU. Their guy got hurt. Like if there's no injuries, they beat LSU.
Right.
And LSU got gifted that game, and then all of a sudden they're 7-2, and they are in the playoff hunt as well. They just took down Mizzou. Very, very, very interesting stuff. All right, well, more to come this week. We'll get Quan, maybe a special guest. We'll see. Fisher, DJ, Nikki, Snacks, Kreider, Hook'em Horns. We out ya. We love ya.